Want to have a go at the new Spotify? The latest from Podnews.net with the podcast show, the new International Festival for Podcasting in London this May. Want to play with the new Spotify interface for podcasting? It's already on your phone. If you have an iPhone or an iPad, you can open Safari, visit Spotify:internal:podcast clips, and you go straight there. Thank you to Chris Messina for sharing that. Only a week after the Ambies, the Webbies have decided to launch their own podcast awards. It'll be called the Signal Awards and set to take place in January 2023. Now that's the normal date for the iHeart Podcast Awards. And we'd note that Anna Hosny, executive producer at iHeartRadio, is one of the judges. What's going on there then? Resonate Recordings has posted a recap of Podcast Movement Evolutions 2022. Audio Up has signed with Universal Music Publishing Group to identify and sign songwriters to create original music for the company's stable of podcasts. Music industry website Music Business Worldwide has highlighted fake artists on music platforms. It's not just a Spotify issue, it's everywhere, they say. Joe Rogan is to quit podcasting. If he has to walk on eggshells, he says in Tuesday's episode. We link to where to buy eggshells in our show notes and our newsletter today. And Tom Webster dives into the detail from Edison Research's Infinite Dial with more context and data around the apparent decline in podcast listening. Tomorrow is April the 1st. We did have fun last year, but for 2022, as you can possibly tell from my throat, it'll just be a normal newsletter. Now, welcome to the many new readers from our coverage of YouTube's podcast plans from yesterday. Now, for noting, YouTube's PDF was dated March 2022, TechCrunch asked, and it has no author. TechCrunch asked that too. And it was sent to us by a third party prior to Kai Chuck's session at Podcast Movement, but glossed over by our source at the time as it's just a best practice PDF I've got hold of, and it might be interesting. Now, in order to protect that source, we need to take a little time to make a version of the PDF without its original metadata, and hopefully I'll have that done tomorrow for you. In the meantime, the slides suggest that full video podcasts on YouTube get 2 times more views than podcasts just using static images. On the other hand, one slide, which we link to today in our show notes and our newsletter at podnews.net, shows how well a nicely produced graphic works. Now, you might reasonably wonder why this sort of helpful information wasn't shared at a podcast conference full of creators and publishers. We've been wondering that too. Thank you for the coverage, TechCrunch and TubeFilter, among others, and we've approached YouTube for comment. And in People News, the host of the Cape Heart podcast, Jonathan Capehart, has been made associate editor at The Washington Post, and Brian Swarth is now SVP of Subscriber Engagement and Product Marketing at cable broadcaster AMC Networks, he was head of marketing for Audacy's Cadence 13 and Pineapple Street Studios. This podcast is brought to you by The Podcast Show, the new International Festival for Podcasting in London this May. It's a 2-day business event with all sorts of speakers like Alice Levine, Edith Bowman, Monroe Bergdorf, Jane Garvey and Fee Glover, Miranda Sawyer, and BBC Sounds' boss, Jonathan Wall. And get ready for another 250 names being announced in the coming weeks. You can book your day pass from £55. Use promo code PODNEWS for 20% off a limited number of passes. We're a media partner and we will be there and probably having drinks at the event as well. We will keep you in touch with that and how that works. And we thank them for their support this month. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories in full and subscribe, we're at podnews.net.